Alt,
Here.
Bard,
Here.
Awful,
Here.
Sure,
Yep. Everyone has a copy of the agenda there in front of them. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
so moved.
Take your pick. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion passes. Do we have any public comments this morning? Seeing none, we'll go to the committee chair reports. We'll start out with Mrs. Awful on the health committee.
We will have a regular meeting report.
Okay, Mr. Bard, tax, zoning, and planning.
The department heads will be making their regular reports. We'll be voting on a resolution for the Kankakee Conservatory and river and that whole deal.
Okay. Mr. Alt, finance.
Mike McTaggart didn't call me, so I don't know what we're doing.
You don't know what you're doing.
No, we might meet next Thursday, I would guess, about 9 o'clock.
Okay. I can tell you one thing you'll be doing. The sheriff will be at the meeting and he'll be talking about the agreement for law enforcement with Gilman. We had a meeting last evening over in Gilman. So he'll be at the finance committee to talk about that. How about the highway committee, Mr. Hall?
I'll defer to Joe.
Other than the regular report, we're gonna have a letting for a stone cap on the Leonard Road. Other than that, everything else is good.
Okay. I'll skip my comments and move on to Mr. Tracy and his report.
Things I've been working on the past month. On the 5th of August, I hosted a LEPC meeting, the local emergency planning committee. Things we're working on is getting a tabletop exercise organized concerning flammable liquids, working with local fire departments, and a local hazard material facility to try to have a nice exercise. I've been attending a FEMA webinar series on hazard mitigation funding opportunities. Those webinars are ongoing. There's another one late this month and another one in October, so I'm just trying to keep up on that. Along with that, I've been working on the hazard mitigation plan. And on the 12th of August, went to a regional meeting, IEMA Region 7 meeting in Urbana. First time we've had that meeting in over a year. We used to have them once a quarter. On the 12th of August and the 21st of August, I supplied some mutual aid and went over and helped in Gibson City for the flash flooding that they had. On the 25th of August, went to a Mavis meeting in Danforth. Mavis is mutual aid box alarm system, basically the fire departments. On the 26th, I went to an ICARC, the Quake County Amateur Radio Club meeting. These are both monthly meetings I try to attend. Looking forward, continue work on the hazard mitigation plan, and today I'm hosting a hot wash for the pipeline incident we had a couple months ago. I'm going to sit down with all the players that were involved. We're going to talk about what went well, what didn't go so well, and how we can improve on such incidents in the future. Normal thing after an incident. And we have an LEPC meeting on the 28th of September. Also, it's worth mentioning, Patriot Day is coming up this month. EMA doesn't have anything particular going on, but we'd like to recognize that day as a very significant day in emergency management. That's all I have, unless anybody has any questions.
I don't think I'll be able to attend your hot wash today.
Yes, sir.
My schedule seems to be kind of full, so.
Yeah. I'll keep you
Back out
on.
of that one. You can wash without me, right?
I suppose.
Good. Okay, anyone else have any questions for Mr. Stacy? Thank you, Eric. Next, we'll move on to the county board redistricting. Brian distributed a copy of the maps. This is something that she voluntarily went through recently to see what other options we would have as far as matching up the county insofar as, you know, what we passed in our ordinance last month, to having 16 board members and so forth with 4 districts. There's 9 different options. Excuse me, yeah, 9 including the one that we have at the present time. If you'd like, I can go through each one with you and give you my comments about them. Number 1 is the existing map that we have with us today. Number 2 shows an arrangement that primarily the issue that I would have with it would split up Middleport and Belmont townships. And for those of you that aren't entirely familiar with that line between those 2 townships runs just south along Mulberry Street and just south of Highway 24.
Yeah.
So it kind of splits the city of Watseka in half, as it were. And Belmont Township goes all the way down and includes Woodland. In fact, the Belmont Township building is in Woodland. The Middleport Township building is out here north of the Walmart by the cemetery, but I don't know how much rural area it includes, but it includes some rural area besides what's in the city. It's my feeling, obviously up to the committee to concur, but it's my feeling that keeping those 2 townships together might make more sense. Especially when I was related a story by Brian about the man that's the township supervisor in Belmont Township. They didn't know what township he was in because the boundary line ran right through his house. And so they determined where he slept at night and where he laid his head in his bed as to which township that was in. That's kind of humorous, I know, but it illustrates.
Different.
Yeah.
To me, it illustrates that maybe we want to try and keep them in the same county board district if possible. So, other than that, I don't know that I see anything, wrong with that map. Basically, the intent of these different maps is to have the population in each district be a little bit closer together than what we have with the map that we are currently operating under. And so that's that for number 2. Number 3 is one that I don't find anything wrong with it myself. It basically takes Loda Township out of District 2 and exchanges them for Iroquois Township and Crescent Township in District 3. Other than that, District 1 and 4 stay the same as they are configured right now.
Proposal 3 isn't what we were on before we're on the one we are now?
Is what?
Wasn't that the one before we were on? We were on before we are on the one we are actually on now?
Well, we used to have 5 districts though, so there was,
Oh, okay.
10 years ago was when we went to 4. We had 5 districts of 5, and then we went to 4 districts of 5. Now we're gonna go to 4 and 4. Okay, let's move on to number 4. Primarily what that does is split up Middleport and Belmont Township again. And I believe if I'm looking at number 4 correctly, it takes in what they're calling District 4, which is current District 3, you'd be having 7 existing county board members running for 4 seats in that district. David Penny and I are in Artesia Township, and the other ones from currently in District 3 are within Milford, Pigeon Grove, and Ash Grove Township. So that would be my issue with that one. And then on map number 5, map number 5 really does the same thing. It splits up Middleport and Belmont, and then in District 3 you have right now at least 1 current board member in Belmont Township, 1 in Onarga Township. Well, excuse me, that's not right. In District 2 is where you would have right now you've got 2 members in Douglas Township, 2 members in Artesia, that's 4, and 3 in Pigeon Grove Township, that's 7. So that would be the problem with number 5. Number 6 kind of does the same thing, I believe. You got 2 in Douglas, 2 in Artesia, and 3 in Pigeon Grove. Also splits up Middleport and Belmont Township. All of these maps reduce the disparity in population from one district to another, though. I should point that out, that if you summarize that, you can see where it brings the numbers closer together. And number 7, you would have 7 existing board members in District 3. It keeps Middleport and Belmont together. But you have 2 board members right now from Artesia Township. And you have all 5 of them from District 3. And proposal number 8, that splits up Middleport and Belmont. I think you have 6 board members in District 4. And proposal number 9, that splits up Middleport and Belmont. And it has 7 board members in what is shown as District 4. Those are the, I don't know if you want to call them criticisms or whatever problems I found with the maps. As I said, I think all of them accomplished getting the population numbers closer together, and that was the objective of doing it, showing us ways by which we could rearrange the districts and be able to not have such quite a disparity in population from one district to another. The districts that we have right now in place meet the requirements that, as I understand them, of not more than a 10% difference between the most populous and the least populous district. I think we're about 8% differential. But these others bring the numbers closer together. And the only issues with them are what I outlined, where we're either splitting up Belmont and Middleport Township, or we're pitting 6 or 7 current board members for 4 seats. It could lead us, depending on, if we were to do something like that when the election came around, if we weren't able to, that means there's a district that may only have 2 or 3 people running for 4 seats, unless some new people came along to run for those seats, so.
And it's hard enough to get people to run for the seats.
Well, and I think that's one of the points, is that, plus the fact that when you have existing board members, you have a value in that insofar as their experience on the board.
Right.
And if you pit them against one another, you're losing a little bit there, so.
Yeah.
But that's my evaluation of it. So to me, what it boils down to, if we want to accept that evaluation, we'd be looking at a decision between the existing, which is map number 1, or map number 3. Map number 3, probably makes a lot of sense in that it, brings the population numbers closer together. And all it does is to switch Rhoda Township, put it in District 3, and pick up Iroquois and Crescent Township for District 2.
I like that.
So I think that's, in my mind, unless somebody has different ideas, which are certainly welcome here, but, in my mind, that would bring us down to making a decision between those 2. I think there's value in looking at the map the way it's constructed right now for the purpose of any individuals in the county. People do get somewhat comfortable with knowing what district they're in and who the county board members are that they are dealing with. But by the same token, there's a lot of people that don't give a hoot where they're at, I suppose.
Isn't that the truth?
In any case, I think that's kind of what you're looking at between the 2 of them. If we're gonna make the change for the purpose of bringing the population numbers closer together, that would be,
The only time they know who their county board members are when they vote on election day and see the names.
or if they got a real serious problem and they wanna complain to
Yeah.
somebody, that's about it.
I
So-
I prefer proposal 3.
You do what?
3 is what I like.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Well, we have 2 choices. One of them is if we want to go ahead with that, we can approve that here today and bring it before the board on the 14th, or we could wait 1 month. We need to get this finalized in November at the very latest, so.
I already made my decision.
To me, the numbers aren't gonna change now. The numbers that we're looking at are what came out from the census people. So those numbers are there. They're not gonna change. And,
That would be subject to change if you could get up on the north side of Middleport and have some people commit themselves to, hey, we live here, but
in any case, like I said, it is what it is, so we can either take action on it today, or we can defer and wait till next month if we want. But I
I
would
make
not
a
want to go
motion we go
beyond that.
with proposal 3.
Second.
Okay. You have any thoughts about it, Mr. Alt?
No.
Don't care one way or another? You're picking up,
Agreed that 1 and 3 are probably the closest we have of
you,
keeping the.
right, but I mean, it affects your district in that you're picking up Loda Township and you're losing Crescent and Iroquois.
I realize that.
I'm losing Loda Township and picking up Crescent and Iroquois.
I realize that.
That means I have to deal with the county clerk now.
I'll change my mind.
Oh, yes, excuse me.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, could you call the roll, please, Amanda?
Alt,
Yes.
Bard,
Yes.
Awful.
Yes.
Sure.
Yes. So we're gonna recommend this map number 3 to the board on September 14th. Maybe what we can do, instead of having to print up copies of these maps for everybody, or even if we have to do that, maybe we can email copies to everybody ahead
Yeah,
of time.
after today, I'll just send what I had sent you earlier, and I'll just send it out to the entire board and
Right,
let them know
let
that.
them study it over
tentatively,
before the
yeah.
meeting. Okay, next on the agenda, update on sexual harassment training. According to the email I got, we're still stuck at 82%.
We're stuck at 82%. It seems like when we lose somebody that has taken it, we gain somebody. So, like you had said, I had sent out yesterday a list of non-compliance with the online instructions again on how to complete their sexual harassment training.
Well, this is September now, we're kind of getting near the end of the year, so we're gonna have to see what we can do to clamp down on people that haven't gotten
Got
it
some board
done.
members on there.
Light some fires under them, John.
Light some fires, huh? How about firecrackers?
Well, cherry bombs or whatever.
I'll have some discussions with Jill, we'll see what we can come up with about how we can get that done. Okay, let's move on to a discussion on the use of the ARPA funds. You got this deal here that Jill passed out a few minutes ago, so we'll let her explain it.
Okay, so the American Rescue Plan Act was signed into law on March 11th of this year. Basically, it is about $350 billion that was allocated to states in local recovery, for local recovery efforts. Iroquois County got just a little over $5 million. We already received, you'll get it in 2 equal tranches, and the first one we already have received, so it's just kind of sitting there. I've done quite a bit of research on how other counties are handling it. I have emailed some information out to the board members. I have lots and lots of more. But this is something that we need to kind of decide, the county board does, on how you want to utilize these funds or allocate funds to qualified individuals or businesses or entities in the county. So I just kind of put together this little informational packet here. Just includes a short introduction, the intent of what ARPA is supposed to be used for, a little description there of what the county board role would be. After doing some research, I kind of, again, put together 7 policies. These can be changed. My suggestion to John is that there needs to be a subcommittee formed to revise and kind of finalize any sort of policies or process that we're gonna do with these ARPA funds. And I kind of included a little bit of a procedure down there, a little flow map of just a suggestion of how the process needs to work. And this is after reviewing multiple counties' processes and what they're doing. But the main key is that public input is very important, and they want you to have that public input. So just going through the flow chart a little bit, we get a subcommittee assigned, they can meet and go through the information, set up meeting dates, and then the first thing should be an internal and external input meeting. Meaning internal, any department heads or employees that want to request funds for specific use. External meaning any public, local businesses, municipalities that did not apply or could not apply or didn't qualify. And there's a whole list here, and I'll go through those, but that's what I mean by internal and external. It's just the internal and then the external public. And then once we set up the policies and process, it goes on and on and on there. So everything else on that flow chart is pretty explainable. The next section is just a short paragraph on the non-allowed uses and funds. Basically, it's not directly available for private for-profit entities. And because these entities have access to ARPA funding and other allocations, but there's little leeway in there to where you can work with them on certain matching programs and things like that. And then the following page comes directly from the U.S. Department of Treasury and their example uses of funds. This gets a little tricky. One of the uses is to support public health response. You can use it to replace public sector revenue loss, water and sewer infrastructure, focus services, address any negative economic impacts, premium pay for essential workers, broadband infrastructure, and then it goes on to say that in ineligible uses, any changes that reduce net tax revenue or payments to a pension fund, and so on. So the one issue I'm having right now is I'm working with the Department of Treasury on doing a revenue. There's a huge equation to do a revenue loss, and it's over the span of 5 years. So far, we don't show a revenue loss. So we're gonna be limited, the county is going to be limited on how we can use the funds, but they can still be distributed out to other entities or businesses or municipalities that can use them. So just a few general guidelines, and reporting requirements are on the next page. I tried to make it as easy to go through because the interim rule is like 80 pages long, so just some bits and pieces there, and that's again another reason why I am suggesting that a subcommittee be formed, because there's a lot of information that needs to be gone through, and I've gone through it multiple times, and a process involved to where we have a paper trail and a process in line for when we get audited. Because we will have to do a single audit again next year, is my guess. So one of the things I'm proposing is that we have applications that will be handed out at one of our input meetings. And there is 2 different applications included in this packet, because any application for under 50,000 has different reporting lines than any application over 50,000. So basically, it's just an application that we could set out for internal or external persons to apply for these funds, and the ARPA committee can go over and make sure that they are within the guidelines of the usage for the funds, and prioritize and go through and kind of approve or reject these applications. Let's see here. If you look on the applications, it gets very specific on, I mentioned earlier, public health. There's a listing there of 12 items that it goes through that are pretty specific for people to kind of, when they apply, have an idea if what they have in mind they want to do will fall within these categories. So, and again, this is for individuals as well as businesses. So section 2 with the negative economic impacts, it also is, there's 14 listings there. Some of them include household assistance for food programs, rent, mortgage, utility, cash transfers, any job training, small businesses, economic assistance, any non-profit organizations, aid to them, and any aid to tourism, travel, or hospitality. That's how specific it gets. And then the third section is services to just proportionally impacted communities, so any education assistance, healthy childhood environments, housing support, or others. Premium pay, there's only 2 listed there. Basically, public sector employees or private sector grants to other employers. And then it goes through infrastructure, and this is what I want to hit on specifically, is if you look at these 17 items, they have to do with clean water, drinking water, and broadband, which is any sort of internet, last mile projects, things like that. Revenue replacement in section 6, again, I'm still working on our revenue calculations, but thus far, we're not showing a reduction. And then section 7 goes through administrative, again, any administrative expenses, evaluation of data, transfers to other governments. That one, number 7, to give you an example, Kankakee County is utilizing their funds, and I believe this got passed by their county board, to hire a management company to help manage the applications and the funds that are given out over $50,000 for their reporting purposes. Just to give you an idea of that. And then I also listed on page 15, there's some links and resources. These are the links and resources that I use to kind of gather this information together. I have a lot more of information and links and resources if anybody is interested. I will be sending out through email some of those links and information to read upon throughout the next month until we get something kind of set up with how the process is going to work.
Okay, anybody have any questions?
Not yet, I'm sure they'll be plenty.
I guess one thing that's very clear is that the challenge is to find the items that are included or eligible here, because we got plenty of places we can spend the money, but whether they're eligible or covered is the question we have to figure out, so.
And again, I strongly suggest there be a subcommittee specifically focused on the American Rescue Plan Act.
And I think we can do that. I think it's a question of getting that put together, so I'll be having more conversations with you about that, Jill.
Okay.
Okay? Anybody else have anything else that they want to add to it? Anybody that wants to volunteer to serve on the subcommittee, can let me know.
How many do you need?
We don't show any partiality.
How many do you need on that committee, Jill?
You know, different counties have different numbers. I've seen anywhere from 5 to 7. The one interesting thing is I saw a few of the counties that actually have a person from the public to be kind of a voice for the public or local businesses or whatnot that also served on the committee. So 5 to 7 board members is what I'm seeing, plus that public kind of spokesperson.
Makes sense.
So what would the entire makeup, how many individuals would that consist of?
My recommendation would be to have, if we could get 5 or 6 board members together, and then we could put out a press release, or if they want to apply for the spot, either way, include a public person.
Okay,
I guess I could,
we'll dig into it some more and
yeah.
get it figured out.
Charlie, you up for that?
I don't know.
Okay,
Won't be any stripping.
Yeah. Okay.
we're fortunate to have Mr. Tim with us again today. And we need to get on with the review of the personnel policy manual. We left off last time on page 80. So we're going to begin on page 81. I have some notes to work off of here, and I believe Jill probably has some also. So
I
anything you-
get that.
Anything you people have, why, you chime in.
Do I have one? You sure? When did I do it?
Didn't need to print you some pages.
Not today, that's fine.
It might be a good idea if we could get some for her to follow along with here.
Okay, do you want to just look at mine?
Okay, on page 81 is where we're beginning. The subject is medical leave. And I really don't have anything that I can see to change there. I guess other than to ask the question if this is the way we want it to be. If anybody knows any reason why we need to make any changes there, if not, we'll leave it the way it is. So, when I say that, I'm inviting anybody that has any comments to speak up, so. Hearing nothing, we can move on to page 82. In the first paragraph, it says the failure to return from a leave of absence on a date specified will be considered job abandonment and make the employee ineligible for rehire. The next sentence says an employee unable to return within the 30-day time frame will have to resign and reapply for employment. It's a little bit confusing there. If you don't return on the time specified and can never be rehired, how can you reapply for employment?
Contradictory.
So we need to get that straightened out.
Would you wanna just strike that second sentence?
Well, not necessarily, because there can be extenuating circumstances where somebody might not be able to return from a leave of absence and not be able to communicate that
Yeah,
right away. And that making them ineligible to be rehired might be a bit harsh.
yeah,
I think the door should be left open, that it should be our decision whether we would want to rehire them or not.
It's true.
But I think we need to try and make that a little clearer than what it is.
If you put in what the lawyers call weasel words, if you insert the word may, I think it could work. Failure to return from a leave of absence on the date specified will be considered job abandonment and may make the employee ineligible for rehire. That means it's up to the county's discretion.
Right. I think that's probably an excellent suggestion. We're gonna leave the next sentence the way it states then?
uh-huh, okay, yeah.
When you reapply for employment, that doesn't necessarily mean your application will be accepted.
Right,
So let's add the word may between and make in the first sentence there. And in section 3, going down the page under responsibility, item C refers to the Iroquois County Board Office. So the question is, if that should be changed to the Iroquois County Board Executive Assistant. This is the same item that we've had heretofore in many places in this book. And there's a whole bunch more coming up just like it. Back when this policy was put together, there was a separate office out here that right now is occupied by Iroquois Economic Development. That office at that time was the county board office, and the executive assistant desk was in that office along with the county board chairman. So that's been changed, and Amanda's in the finance office now. There really isn't a county board office exclusively. So I'm just thinking that, and that's why we've made some of these changes when this has come up before, to try and provide clarity as to what we're referring to, what we're talking about, or if we're directing somebody to go somewhere, where they should be going, and so forth. So this is the first one that we're encountering today, and like I said, there's going to be a whole bunch more before we get through today's session on this. But we need to decide how we want to handle this. Do we want to say that it's the responsibility of the Iroquois County Executive Assistant to take appropriate action? Do we want to say it's the responsibility of the Iroquois County Board? Or just say Iroquois County? I mean, we have to come up with some.
They usually do turn in their insurance checks to you, don't they, Amanda?
I'm not sure what we're looking at.
When somebody is on
Medical
leave.
leave. It's a part of medical leave.
Like Bill turns in his checks to you, doesn't he?
Yes.
Uh-huh. So we can just change it to
Yeah,
county
change
board
it to-
executive assistant.
In almost every instance where this comes up, it's gonna be Amanda as the individual that this is directed to or has that responsibility.
Mhm.
It's just in my mind, as I said, for purposes of clarity, that we identify that so there's no misunderstanding, or just so that we're more accurate in what we're establishing.
Yeah.
So,
That would be good.
in section 4, under item C, it says, and this has to do with where they make a request for medical leave. Item C says the department head or supervisor will make a recommendation for final evaluation and decision. Who's making the decision? Doesn't say anywhere. Is that the county board chairman? Is that Amanda? Who's making the decision to grant somebody the medical leave?
Well, if it's FMLA, they'll turn in their paperwork to their department head or supervisor, and then I just keep it on file. Anything else, I've never had anybody not be approved for any kind of medical leave.
But who's approving?
Their supervisor or department head.
Okay, because that's not what it says. It says they're making a recommendation.
Mhm.
If the department head is the one that's making the decision,
Mhm.
then we should say that they're making that decision, not that they're making a recommendation.
So you can strike, the words, a recommendation for, an evaluation, and then it'll be the department head or supervisor will make a final decision. Or the final decision, either way.
If that's the way we're doing it, and that's the way we want it, then that's fine with me. I see it as something there.
Then in the next, in D, I would strike if the request is approved and just change it to the department head or supervisor will review with the employee. So on and so forth.
Also on that same one, under item E,
Mhm.
we got the same thing where it says Iroquois County Board Office.
For the executive assistant, and she handles payroll.
Okay, that's all I have on that page. The next page, 83, under item G, should be executive assistant there as well, instead of county board office. Again, just to make sure everybody understands, when this was written and we had a separate office, you came in that office and took care of your business, but it's not really that way anymore. Okay, page 84. In section 2, under policy, on the third paragraph, in the second line, it says Iroquois County Board Office. That needs to be changed to executive assistant. Page 85. The second paragraph talks about being in reinstatement. My question is, should that whole entire paragraph be combined with the last paragraph on page 84? Part of the reason behind that is the last paragraph on page 84 would lead one to believe that no matter what the situation or conditions are, when you return from military service, you automatically can be rehired. And the last in the paragraph we're talking about on page 85 says otherwise. It says you have to still be qualified to be rehired. So that's a little bit of a contradiction there. So either we need to, I think, combine those two paragraphs or change the wording somehow to be more clear as to exactly what an employee is entitled to when they come back from military service.
You can just combine them.
I don't know that we've had any examples where we've experienced anything like that, but that certainly doesn't mean that we won't in the future.
Basically, when they come back, it's like they never left unless they get court-martialed with any discharge other than.
Right, but the last paragraph on page 85 is saying you still have to be qualified to do your job. If you lost your skill or competency in your job, you're not entitled to get going again. If you're a truck driver for the highway department and you've been sitting at a desk in the military and you don't know how to drive anymore, you can't be expected to drive a truck at the highway department. That may not be exactly, the way things are, but I believe you have to have a certain type of driver's license at the highway department, and you may not have that anymore when you come back from the military. So whatever the circumstances are, to me, those two paragraphs should be combined. So.
Keep it simple.
Further on page 85, under section 3, responsibility, under item B, we've got the same issue with county board office, should be executive assistant. That's what Amanda does.
Well, paragraph 4C, you have the Iroquois County Board Office.
Yeah, I'm coming to that. I got
Oh,
one,
okay, I'm sorry.
one above that I'm trying to see why. Okay. And item C under responsibility says it is the responsibility of the employee when the end of the leave to is known to notify. That first "to" needs to be removed. typo or whatever there. It's not, that word is not fit in with the sentence. Should be the end of the leave is known to notify the employer. And the next one would be what Roger was just saying in section 4, item C, about county board office should be the executive assistant. Moving on to page 86 under sick leave, I didn't find anything on that page, so my question there is that what we want? Is that our policy for sick leave? In most cases covered by the union contracts and so forth, but I didn't research it to see if it's completely up to date, or if there's ever been any changes made in it. Anybody have any thoughts? Is that the way is that what we're doing right now? Is that the way we want to word it? So, page 87.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Is KinCare addressed somewhere else? Because that's a requirement now.
Say no, 'cause I don't even know what that is.
Okay. If you offer sick leave, a certain portion now, this was a new law, a certain portion of sick leave must be made available for KinCare. What that means is, so if you call in and you say, I'm not sick, my kid is sick, and I'm gonna stay home. Some companies, not one of them, were really, really strict in that if you called in and you said, I'm gonna stay home to take care of my kid, they would say, we don't have that.
Yeah, I just never have heard it called that.
Yeah. Should I get, if that's
I
on somewhere
know
else?
I know it's stated like that in union contracts, but we'll have to add that in here.
All right, I'll make a note to get KinCare language.
Okay, thank you.
I thought it said that in here someplace. I don't see it in here right now, but I thought I remembered. I was working on this yesterday, and I thought I saw it in there someplace. Maybe it's somewhere else, but.
I know it's in the union contracts,
Yeah, I know it is too, but I thought I saw it in here somewhere.
Is it somewhere else?
unless it's somewhere else.
Paragraph 4, it says immediate family illness. Doesn't say kids, doesn't say like a stomachache or anything, it says immediate family.
Okay, and it doesn't have a percent, it doesn't say X amount of
No,
days.
it just says-
So if that's the policy you want to have, then you're good to go. Okay.
Would you mind still sending me the language?
Sure.
Thank you. I'll wait, Tim will send me the language and we'll go
Yeah.
from there.
Okay. On page 87 in section 3, responsibility, under item B, we got the county board office there, it should be executive assistant. Same thing in section 4 under procedure, for item C and D, those should be executive assistant also. On page 88, I couldn't find anything wrong there, so my question is that what we want? Is that up to date and so forth? It should be, our policy should be in accordance with that Economic Security and Safety Act. If that act is still current, hasn't changed at all in the last 7 or 8 years, then I guess this page would be right. I'm not someone to tell you whether that's the case or not, so that's why I'm saying, is that okay? I guess, Tim, you might have the answer to that question.
What was that question again?
wanting to know if the way the wording on page 88 is correct.
Security and safety.
Our policy has to conform with the
I'll check. I'm immediately aware of that.
Economic Security and Safety Act, is we have to, we have to follow that.
Okay. I mean, it doesn't look problematic. I'll just check and verify that.
Okay. Same question I have on page 89, the two go together, so I didn't find any place on there about the county board office for a change. But nevertheless, the two pages go together, they're all part of that same number there, so. Let's move on to page 90. On page 90, under policy, my sheet has, this is for lunch breaks, my sheet has the half blocked out so that everybody's entitled to a 1 hour lunch break. I believe that's correct. The question is, everybody's got a page where the half is blocked out and has 1 hour now, or not? If not, that needs to be corrected.
Is that on page 90 you're talking?
Page 90.
This one is not blocked out.
The first sentence under policy says
This
each
one.
employee is scheduled to work more than 5-hour shifts is entitled to, it originally said a half-hour unpaid meal break. Mine's
Well, I
got
think
the half
the
blocked
law
out.
states 5 hours, but the union contracts is where it gives them an hour. So if the contracts were ever to get changed, we're covered either way. Because the law is either 4.5 or 5 hours that they work, but they have to have a 30-minute meal break.
Okay, but are we giving them a 30-minute meal break or a 1 hour meal break?
Well, we're giving them 1 hour, so we're covered either way.
I understand that, but then we need to make sure that everybody's page says 1 hour. I don't know when the half got crossed out of mine. It could have been a couple of years ago or whenever, I don't know, but at some point in time, it was changed. I never got a new page, just, when I came to this page, I saw where it was blocked out.
This
Yeah.
one says 1-half hour.
Right, so and that's Amanda's copy that doesn't have that way. Everybody's needs to read the same, so either we gotta give them a new page or make sure we block the half out on every page. Same thing,
And then add the word "and" when you take 1/2 out to an hour.
okay, that's right. And on the very end of that section, under policy, the last sentence says, if the meal break is interrupted by the necessity to return to work, the meal period becomes work time and will be paid, or another 1/2 hour meal period will be assigned.
And we cross out or another half-hour meal period will be assigned.
So it should be another 1 hour meal. Is that right?
Well, if they work through their lunch, I don't know what other departments do, but we usually comp it or they take it at a different time during the same day.
Well, and I understand that, and I guess that's fine. The question, I guess, and I hope that if what happened, it would be handled in a cooperative manner, but if you have a 1 hour lunch break and you're into it 45 minutes, you got 15 minutes late, and your supervisor comes up and says, hey, you need to come back to work right away. There's an emergency or this or that. Are you gonna give them 15 minutes later in the day, or are you gonna give them a whole 1 hour? This part here doesn't really clarify that. I don't know if somebody would make an issue out of it. Normally, I would expect that, like I said, people would be cooperative in that respect, but do we want wanna leave it the way it is, or do we wanna make some adjustment?
I would strike where another half-hour meal period will be assigned, but then I would add, to the previous sentence, that if they are asked to return to work, becomes work time and will be paid or comp time.
So you're taking the last last phrase out that says another half hour will be assigned, taking that out?
That would be my suggestion.
And then you're adding to the meal period becomes work time and will be paid or given comp time, is that what you said?
That would be my suggestion, yeah.
Okay.
Whether it gets comp the same day, or whether it gets used the same day or a different day, that's up to the department.
Have you had any experiences that way, Brian?
What, I'm sorry, I'm spacing out.
Where somebody's, their lunchtime gets interrupted, you have to call them back to work for some reason, whatever
Yeah.
it would be.
Yeah.
What do? Do you give them more time later in the day then?
It depends on how they wanna do it, and, I mean, we just work together, but most of the time, it's usually just they'll wanna comp time it, so that's what we do.
And I would hope that it would always be that way, but I was saying, you know, if some employee somehow or reason didn't wanna cooperate, then what do you go by?
Right, we haven't run into that issue, I guess as long as you have happy employees, you're not gonna run into that, so, I don't know. But we haven't run into the issue, and, well, I mean, I've been here since 2006, and it was never an issue from them that I
If
can
they don't wanna come back, they're not gonna come back.
do what.
I said, if they don't wanna come back early, they're not gonna come back early.
Right, so,
But
but.
they're not gonna argue with you. they're
Everyone's
gonna pay
usually,
you.
yeah, they're usually flexible, and we change their lunches a lot too.
Yeah, depending on the day.
Right, so everyone's usually flexible unless there's some absolute reason they can't.
Well, I guess I would go along with what Jill was suggesting as far as the changes made, and I think that probably gives us the flexibility that, I mean, you know, it's maybe left up to the discretion of the department head as to how they wanna handle it, and so forth, so. Everybody okay with that?
Yep.
Okay. So, let me see where I'm at here. Page 91, I don't have anything there. Nepotism, hiring of family members. Just the way we want it to be. There's a big, long definition under policy of what a relative is. We may have some instances, depending on how you define this, we have some people hired, working for the county now that are related to one another. Except in the case of the snow removal, we don't have anybody that's working together though. You know, we agreed to make that situation.
I think we only have one department where they have family working underneath them, but they have their own board.
Well, if they have their own board, that's up to them as to how they
Health
handle it.
department.
I'm just, you know, I'm asking the question if that's the way we want it to be, the way it's written here, if we need to make any changes.
I think it's absolutely how it should be.
Yeah, it's fine. What do you guys?
Certainly when you have relatives working in the same department, you can create problems and issues as to how things are handled, so. Okay, page 92. Says that, this has to do with on-call. First sentence under policy, employees are required by their supervisors to remain on call after the regular workday or work week should be available by cellular phone. What if they don't have a cell phone? Does everybody have a cell phone? I suppose in this day and age, it's hard to find somebody that doesn't, but does this mean they have to have a cell phone?
They could be out of service.
You can just end the sentence unavailable and strike cell phone.
Well, they have to be available some way to be contacted. If you're on call and
So
you're
then
called
you're gonna
in,
make a phone
you have
call to a
to
landline,
communicate
or
some way.
send somebody to their house.
Either they got a landline or a cell phone, or they got a neighbor that they run to, or some way.
Are all the employees that are on call, do they all have cell phones?
Mm-hmm.
Then that's probably why it says that. Cause I don't have any employees that are on call. If I did, they'd have a cell phone.
No, it's probation and sometimes the health department,
Sometimes us.
sometimes us. But I got a cell
Yeah, we have cell
Or
phones.
we use to use by messenger.
phone. That's right.
There's a gentleman right in the back of the room that's on call 24/7.
Yes, sir.
He has a cell phone.
Because I know when he goes on vacation, who fills in for him?
You, sir.
And you have a cell phone.
Yes, ma'am.
So do you wanna leave cell phone or do you wanna strike?
Well, I'm asking the questions. I'm not necessarily saying one way or another, but to me, if somebody comes up to me and I want them to be on call and they say, well, I'd like to do that, but I don't have a cell phone, if you can make some other arrangements, that's suitable, that ought to be something that works. So, if we just put in there that they can make suitable arrangements or satisfactory arrangements to be contacted, that's basically what you're trying to do. Everything else in there, I think, on that whole page sounds to me like it's pretty well self-explanatory and probably the way we're doing it and the way it should be. I just spotted that cell phone and thought, what if somebody don't have one? The condition of employment is not that you have a cell phone. I suppose you could make it that, but
Even though you might have a cell phone, it doesn't mean it's working that day, or, you lost it or something. There's gotta be some other way of contacting that person.
You could just put work week should be available for contact. Dealer's choice on how.
I would say they should be available by cellular phone or make other satisfactory arrangements. I think we want to encourage that they be available by cell phone. That seems to be the preferred method of communication in this day and age.
I just assumed everyone had a cell phone that was on call, that the county provided one. I thought that was just a standard business practice. If you're gonna make someone be on call.
Do you have extra cell phones to do that?
No, I don't. But I don't have anyone that's on call, and I'm not on call. My phone is available when people get my cell phone number, but I'm just saying the people like Bill Cheatham, Eric, health department people, but I wouldn't use my personal phone call for county or my personal cell phone for county business. I
So
guess.
Eric, does the county give you the phone?
Yep, county gives me a work cell phone. I have a work cell phone and I have a personal cell phone.
There's a lot of people in the county that really are on call. Joel Moore probably is in that category, the
But I
sheriff.
think Joel has a county cell phone.
And the sheriff is on call
He has a county
24/7.
cell phone.
Yeah. all those cell phones.
I just thought everyone that was considered on-call had cell phones provided. That's why it said cell phone in here,
Okay.
just an assumption.
I wasn't, to be honest with you, I wasn't aware that the county was providing all those cell phones, so it makes sense.
There's more than that too.
Some of them are stated in their contracts that they
Right.
are provided a cell phone, like the probation officers and.
Well, then just leave it the way it is.
Yep.
I guess that's fine. You learn something new every day. That's one of the reasons we're doing this.
Right.
Okay. I guess the question I had on page 93 was answered by the conversation that we just had, just wanting to know who some of the people are that are on call 24/7, so we just identified most of them, or a number of them, so that's good. That's all I had on that page. Anybody else have anything there? If not, on page 94, same thing, and wanting to know if that's okay, that's our overtime. It says, the only thing I can see under policy, in the last paragraph, it says the Fair Labor Standards Act that the county utilizes is 40 hours per work week, so. A lot of our people only work 35 hours. If you work more than 35, are you paid time and a half?
37 and a half.
The union contract states 37 and a half,
Okay.
which is also covered under here, because it says unless otherwise noted in a bargaining unit agreement.
Well, it says here that if your union contract differs, then the union contract covers it. So but the question about our non-union employees, 40 hours or 37 and a half?
We only have, there's only a couple of departments that have 40 hours.
And those that are, they are salary.
Right.
So 40 hours is okay?
Yeah,
All
that's the law.
That answers that question. On page 95, under procedure, item A, talks about the county board office, should be the county board executive assistant. That's where the employees' time records are given. She collects them. She pastes them on her wall. Okay, page 96. On section 2, under policy, paragraphs 3 and 4, county board office should be executive assistant. Section 3, responsibility, items A and B, same. Section 4, under procedures, item B should be the same. Those are all county board office, changed to executive assistant. All has to do with payroll. That's what she does. Gives you your money. Finds there's nothing left over for her. Okay, page 97. Under responsibility, section 3, items A and B, county board office should be executive assistant, I believe. But it could be the county board. I guess A and B should be executive assistant. Then under item C, about failing to do it, may make the county responsible. Are you aware of that?
Which one is it?
When somebody's pay is a garnishment situation. It says that
Failure of
you
Iroquois
have to
County,
do, but it
yes.
says if you don't do it,
Mhm.
this is what happens.
Yep.
So,
That's right.
okay. So A and B need to be changed to executive assistant. Under responsibility, that's what I just said?
Mhm.
No. Here we go. Under responsibility, items A and B. Number 4, under procedure, item A, number 3. Same thing. Page 98, at the top of the page.
John,
Yes, sir.
item 4. This is true even if no money has been withheld, the county board office will,
What page are you on?
98, number 4.
Okay. Okay, what's the question?
Well, it says the county board office, would that be should that be changed?
That's what I have, changing it to executive
Okay,
assistant.
yeah. I didn't hear that, so.
I didn't get that far.
Oh, okay. That was fast. I'm scrolling too fast, I'm sorry.
No, that's perfectly fine, we're moving right along here.
One way to speed it up.
Yeah.
Item, on that same page, item B. Number 1, that's all there is under item B. Says county board office, that should be executive assistant. I don't understand it, maybe somebody can explain. It says, if the garnishee is no longer employed at the time the garnishment is served, the county board executive assistant, what we're changing to, will hold the garnishment for 30 days from the date it was served and then mail it back to the court. Why does it have to be held for 30 days?
I've never done that before.
You always send it back right away? Or you've never done anything like this?
No, we have wage garnishments. But as far as holding it for 30 days,
Is that 30 calendar days or 30 working days?
That doesn't say, but I don't know, I don't understand why there's a time limit anyway. If the person doesn't work here anymore, why wouldn't you send it back right away? I think if nobody knows the answer to that and we want to change it, maybe we need to investigate it a little bit first and find out if there's a legal requirement.
Why that's 30
There
days.
must be some reason why it was put in there like that. I don't imagine why somebody would just arbitrarily pull a number out of the middle of the air and say, well, you gotta do it for 30 days. But what does that accomplish? I mean, if it was in lieu of the fact that the person returned to work or something like that, that might make sense, but it doesn't say anything about that. How can we check that out? Should we talk to the state's attorney about it? Can you do that, Jill? Okay. He'll probably tell you he doesn't know either. Where to go.
Pass it.
Page 99. Says answer of garnishment in the court. My question about that, is that form correct, up to date? Is that what we do?
never used it.
Never used it.
I'm always supplied something from whoever I need to garnish wages for. I'm always supplied a form.
So why do we have one in here? Do we need need, they must be different then. One court uses a different form than another.
Possibly.
We can strike it and just add to page 98, the answer garnishment form is provided.
So we're gonna eliminate page 99 completely. You have a blank there that says this page left blank intentionally.
Then you have to change all the
Take it out.
pages. Then you have to change all the page numbers if you're gonna take it out.
It's
Well,
not
that's
that
why I
hard.
said you can just put a blank page and say this page left blank intentionally.
It's not that hard to take a
Simplest
page
way
out.
to do it.
She said it's not hard to do,
Leave them blank.
No,
to take it out.
to change the page numbers.
Yeah, but if you find out there's a reason to have a form in there, then you're gonna have to come back again. I don't care, one way or the
Just write
other.
it, we never use this form,
Or put sample.
We just put this here to confuse you.
but,
Page 100,
Kankakee County uses it, they don't know what they're doing.
Section 2, policy. First paragraph talks about the county board office. What do you know? Should be county board executive assistant. That's in the first sentence. Section 3, responsibility. There's only one paragraph there, but it says the same thing again, county board assistant. The only question I would have about that is that the county board executive assistant's responsibility to make all employees aware of the policy and enforce it, or should it be the responsibility of the Iroquois County Board? One or the other.
I think it should be the responsibility of the department heads and supervisors to make the employees aware.
Because each department head has a copy of this, and I think it's,
So each department head should make their employees aware,
Mhm.
okay?
I agree with that.
Put it that way. Page 101, I didn't find anything wrong with that on the IMRF. I don't know if it's up to date though, so that's the question I have there. If it's up to date and all good, then let's leave it alone. Are all those the rules? Vesting is with 8 years of service, normal retirement age is 60, and so forth. Is that all correct? That's the way we do it?
How would we know?
no, we need to make those changes.
Sure, there's been changes
I
made.
don't have that information in mind.
I don't either. It just, and the ones I have, John, it says purpose is to assist employees in preparing financially for their retirement years and to offer a comprehensive benefit package as a means to attract and retain quality staff. The policy as IMRF is established under the Illinois Pension Code, which was adopted by state legislation to provide local government employees with retirement, death, and disability benefits. And then it states to please contact IMRF for more specific details regarding the responsibilities and procedures for the retirement plan, and it provides phone number.
Okay, so the paragraph I just read has been removed.
Uh-huh,
That paragraph is in between
Okay.
the ones that you said, so.
you don't need it? You don't
Somebody-
have it?
somewhere-
Okay,
Somewhere along the line, somebody changed, to what you
and they
got.
didn't tell you.
Well, that's
What
not-
year is
That's
yours?
nothing new.
I don't have an effective date on mine.
Mine
It's
was.
been that way at least since I got hired.
None of these pages have an effective date on them, but mine was back in 2014.
Oh, mine was from
2013.
2013.
2013, we adopted it, that's when where mine goes to, so.
What'd you say, Bree?
Mine was from October 8th of 2013.
Yep. Okay, so I'll just do that. Page 102. Section 2, policy, talks about the, where does it say it? The last sentence in section 2 says, evaluation should be sent to the Iroquois County Board office, should be sent to the Iroquois County Board Executive Assistant. Page 103 talks about personal appearance. My question is that okay the way it's written? It says in numerous places that employees should report to work appropriately dressed. Nowhere can I find where it says what is inappropriate. Should there be any definition or distinction between appropriate and inappropriate? Who makes that decision? I guess it's indicated here that the department head is the one that decides what's appropriate and what isn't. So maybe it's good the way it's written. That's my question.
Yeah, if you get too detailed, then it's discrimination against something.
Yeah. It's,
Well, it says the
it's weird.
department head is, or supervisor has to explain uniform policy. So whatever he explains is his policy.
Right. Well, I mean, there's some things, for example, you know, I mean, there's certain items of clothing that people wear to certain places that wouldn't be appropriate in an office like this. For example, the attire that you would wear when you go to the beach for swimming, you wouldn't expect somebody to show up for work that way.
Unless he's going swimming right after work.
No, they'd have to change clothes, Charlie.
Oh,
Sorry about that. But, I mean,
seemed like a waste of time to me.
as long as we're happy with it the way it's written, that's fine with me. Just asking. Page 104, same question, and it's a continuation of appropriate attire. Is that page okay the way it is? Anybody have any questions about it, with it, whatever?
It's fine.
Page 105.
You're running out of stuff on that page. On the personal appearance page. On 103.
Oh,
Mine said I was 4 and 5 and missing one on policy.
yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Page 105. Personnel records. In section 2, under policy, it says the county board office in the second paragraph. In the first paragraph, same thing, that should be executive assistant. And then in section 3, under responsibility, the same changes need to be made under A, B, and C, and D. It talks about the county board office, that should be executive assistant. When you get through reading this book, you feel the executive assistant is a very popular person.
Yes, she is.
Page 106. Under E and F, instead of saying Iroquois County office or executive assistant, it just says notifying Iroquois County. This is a continuation of over here where it talks about the executive assistant and all that. Well, now, up here, we're only notifying Iroquois County.
Yeah, and which department is Iroquois County?
And that's me.
So we want to add executive assistant to Iroquois County.
To here and to here.
Yep.
E and F.
E and F.
Mhm.
Iroquois County 00 road in Yale North. It's Iroquois County. Notified it.
What's wrong with 000 road?
Nothing.
I live on that road.
Well, that's on the far west. There's something wrong with it over there.
They're making fun of me again.
You are.
It says
On page 106,
It says 00 west or 00 east.
section 4, procedure, item C. County Board Office should be executive assistant. Right here. Then I guess the question is, under item E, there are 17 documents that will be retained in the personnel file. Is that list correct? Is that what we do?
Probably. TB testing, police only, I don't know about that.
I want to change that to if applicable.
Yeah.
We need to add, I don't think, Amanda, that we do the policy and procedure manual
No,
acknowledgement.
no, we need to do
We'll add
that.
that to our process, and then what we do that I don't see in here is the, computer use policy.
Right. I think everything else
It's fine.
is fine.
Okay, make note of that. You know?
What about sexual harassment? Do you wanna add that to the list?
It has training records on the next one.
Okay,
It says here the following records will be maintained and filed separate from employees' personnel file. Medical records, equal employment opportunity documents, immigration forms, criminal background checks, safety training records, reference checks, sexual harassment. You want to add that to that?
yes.
Oh, I see G.
And then in paragraph G and H, it talks about county board office, that should be changed to executive assistant here, these two. Page 108,
Only page it should be the finance.
personnel record updates. Why do we have updates? Why is that separate from the other? I don't know, that's a good question. Under section 2, under policy, and section 4, under procedure, we got Iroquois County Office, that should be executive assistant. Telling the employees that they're supposed to notify of any changes in address, status, personnel, that information, phone numbers, W4, all that stuff. Page 109, problem resolution. This is where Mr. Drury comes into play. Is that page correct?
Do you want it to be this way?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know.
All active, under policy, paragraph 2, all active or former employees. I thought that was interesting, former employees. So within 2 weeks of separation, have the right to use this procedure without fear of reprisal. If you make this your standard, it becomes your standard.
Well, it's been our standard since 2013. that's when we approved this, so here we are today to change it or continue it.
Does it work for everybody?
I've had to use it.
Okay. I don't think it just, you just have to remember that if you set you're actually giving, more than you would be legally required to.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I would say that this, along with, if I'm not mistaken, we may have something coming up on, we'll see when we come to it, I guess, but.
Tim, would you mind sending me what is legally required?
Yeah, well, what I'm thinking is, it looks like it's a weirdly restated harassment issue. I think it's redundant. I don't like things that are redundant. It also gives former employees an opportunity to do something, which would mean if you didn't give them this opportunity, you could be then in violation of your own policy. I ditched the whole thing. Because if it's designed to be a discrimination, harassment, those are already addressed in other policies.
They are, and then if it's any sort of resolution that needs to come, most of the employees are covered by union contracts where they'll put in a grievance. I mean, I agree with you, I don't think it needs to be there.
Like I said, never used it.
I think that's why.
Yeah.
I think it's something that's not actually necessary.
No.
I don't think you lose anything by striking the whole thing.
Okay, I guess, the thing that it conjures up in my mind, it goes back to what for me is a sore point. A few years back when we had that lawsuit involving a former animal warden, and I just, to this day, feel like that we got the short end of the stick on that whole deal. And still can't see where we necessarily did anything wrong. Not to say that we didn't, because I don't know that there's some things that can be proved or not proved, but it was a case where, in a sense, and we have lawsuits going on right now or just being filed where the same thing could occur, where somebody is suing the county. And I'm not sure that they have a leg to stand on, but if the insurance company's lawyers say, hey, we paid this guy off and saved money by not going to trial, to me, that encourages those kinds of activities.
Well, in that specific case, though, it's not an employee that filed that lawsuit, so this wouldn't cover them anyway. And in the other instance with the animal control, this wouldn't have covered it regardless, because.
I understand what you're saying, Jill, but I'm just using that as an example of where somebody, whether they're an employee or not, can file the lawsuits.
I don't know, in my opinion, this whole 1048 problem resolution just puts more accountability.
I don't have a problem with taking it out. You gotta take out page 110 and page 111 also. Because all three of them are the same thing.
Why, in your opinion, is it useless?
Because it's already been stated in our harassment policies and such not how it's gonna work as far as the flow of how it's handled. This problem resolution with a whole form and all this is actually putting more liability on the county. Because if it's not done and followed through, that's just one more thing that, an employee or an ex-employee, because it does give them the 2 weeks to, use against the county.
hear that, Chairman.
Yep. I agree, I mean, if you wanted to keep it in there for employees, then you take out the part about former employees, but I think getting rid of the whole thing probably is the best thing to do.
Most of the employees are covered under union contracts that have it all spelled out on how they're supposed to go about solving any issues that they may have regardless. So this applies to very few of us. And I don't know, I just think it's unnecessary.
And it's redundant on the discrimination and harassment.
Mhm.
And actually, then it kind of clouds the issue because it then makes it seem like you have multiple things you should be doing in harassment and discrimination.
Again, this
Okay.
puts more on our shoulders than it doesn't necessarily have.
I'm gonna take out page 109, 110, and 111, all three of them, out of the book.
I'll go.
Page 112. Section 4, procedure. That is the same issue, county board office, and the county board executive assistant. Okay, page 113. Reference checks. That's not a check where you give them money. Section 3, responsibility, and section 4, both have statements about county board office. Need to be changed to county board executive assistant. Otherwise, I guess the rest of it's fine. Page 114. Section 3, responsibility. There's the county board office under item C. And be executive assistant. Now, we talked about this, if I'm not mistaken, if my memory is correct. We talked about this at a prior meeting, either last month or the month before that. One of our earlier policies says that if an employee resigns or quits work, they can't be rehired. And here it says they can be. I didn't have time to go back and find that one, but I remember us talking about it. Because at the time I brought that question up, that I didn't think it was right. If somebody resigns, that makes them ineligible to ever be rehired at any point in the future.
I thought we had changed that to say that it was at the discretion of the department head or supervisor.
Okay. But do we wanna this one here then, how do the two, do we marry them both into one policy then, or do we have to have separate pages that cover this?
If the goal is to get the employee you want them to give you notice, right? You could, again, do the weasel work thing under policy, or instead of saying employees not following the resignation policy are not eligible for rehire, you could say may not be eligible for rehire.
Yeah.
It gives you, the county, the option. That's what you did on that other policy.
And I think that's what we did before. I don't know that the other one said that they had to give 4 weeks notice or 2 weeks notice, depending on the position,
I
but
think this might be redundant.
I just
I
wondered
don't
if.
know why, reference checks, it makes sense under reference checks purpose. And even the first two sentences, or the first two paragraphs in policy, but the rest of it, seems like it's already covered. This policy is specifically talking about reference checks and what we are able or not able to tell a potential future employer, which basically would be confirming the dates of employment and the positions held. I think it's just repeating information as it goes into the responsibilities and the procedures.
I'm sorry, I thought we were on resignation.
Oh, okay, okay, all right.
Sorry.
Yeah, okay, then I'm confused, strike whatever I said.
Where are we?
You're on page 113, and it was suggested that we change in, under policy that it may, that an employee may not be eligible for rehire.
Okay.
No, I think we're on resignations.
Right, that's what I thought.
114.
Did y'all want to help me?
Yeah, we're under one sec.
I think John was asking for resignations. There's a section that talks about rehires, but then in resignations, it talks about if you resign. I can't see the section here. That you may not be eligible for rehire. But then there's another policy, I think, that talks about,
There's a personnel employment separation, number 1016 on page 39,
yeah,
that talks about resignations and.
and whether or not we should combine the two policies or keep them
Separate, I mean.
Hey, my memory isn't so bad after all.
No, so it's my bad, I was on the wrong page. You know.
And did we make that change in the, so what policy was it?
I agree with you, John, we could probably combine those.
Combine
The
the two?
1016 is the policy
Okay.
number that is employment separation that talks
So
about
we could-
resignation.
We could strike policy 1051 and just combine it with 1016.
I think it behooves us to try and make this policy manual as concise as possible, but yet cover all the bases, because this is a good example. If you looked at the first one and weren't aware that this other one exists, you'd never, I mean, it can lead you to make the wrong decision.
Mm-hmm.
So by combining them, I think we eliminate that. So let's make a recommendation that we combine those two, and maybe at our next meeting, we could go back and review them and make, the revised version of them and make sure that's what we want. Okay? Actually, page 115 is the same part of that. So we're really taking page 114 and 115 and combining them with that other policy. And make a note on 115, talks about county board office, so we need to change that to, under item C, under procedure, change that to executive assistant. Now, there's another one I remembered. On page 116, agreement to return property.
I think this one could be strike too, because it's also covered under 1016.
Big discussion about the return of property.
I do remember it.
It was had to do with issuing policy.
Yeah.
We said earlier that when somebody leaves their employment here and they don't return the property, they still get their full paycheck.
They have to by law.
That's not what this says.
That's what I mean, that's what I said, I suggested that we strike policy 1052 and just leave what was stated in final paychecks policy.
So you wanna remove both page 116 and 117? Or do you wanna still have 117 there?
Does anybody use this form?
I'll let anything walk out of the office.
No, I mean, we don't have anything that really goes on in the office either, besides mine and Amanda's laptop.
I didn't hear what.
It doesn't walk out as.
They said the only thing that they have that leaves the office are laptops.
That's deputies. Those deputies.
That's for them, there's other,
Right, well, that's what they're talking about, is
other
items,
departments that may have something different.
right? But I don't know of anybody that uses a form like this. I would say maybe each department has their own means of returning items. I've never used this before, but we've also never had anything to have to return besides a key.
I mean, I could see somebody at the highway department wants to borrow a wrench. They have to sign a piece of paper saying they're taking the wrench. If they never bring it back, how can you prove that they got it? And that can apply to any department, if it's a laptop or whatever, how can you
I
prove?
think that's a department procedure that needs to be decided by the
Yeah.
department head or supervisor.
So you want this removed from the book too?
Mm-hmm.
116 and 117 are removed. Page 118. Safety standards. I guess the general premise of this page is pretty self-explanatory and certainly what we need to do. The only question is it's got everything on it that we want?
Your policy number 4, or paragraph 4 mentions Iroquois County. Is that specific enough?
I think so.
Yeah, I think so.
I think that's a case where that's probably pretty comprehensive. That's what we expect. Every taxpayer in the county expects that, I think. If they don't, they have a right to expect it. And that's, I mean, we're all working for people in the county, so. Next page on number 119, under procedure, third line, talks about the county board office. That should be county board executive assistant.
That actually should be county clerk, because I'm the one that does the workers' comp. So, unless you wanna change it and
No.
give it to the county board executive.
No, we will.
I would gladly.
We'll switch up, you don't want control of the workers' comp.
I don't think so.
We can change it. We can change that to county clerk.
I don't guess there's anywhere else in there that provides any other indication about that, so that's fine. Page 120. My goodness, sexual harassment, we don't have that. I guess we need to know if everything on page 120 and 121 is up to date, current, and all that sort of thing. So I guess I would defer to Mr. Drury to give us his thoughts and opinions on that.
I'm gonna compare it to the new It looks fine to me, but I'm concerned that maybe there's something in the newest. I think it has to state some phone numbers and some other stuff. I'll give you new language.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of what we're looking for, so.
I mean, it looks perfectly acceptable until the state of Illinois changed things and said you need to now tell everybody all the different ways. Yeah. So it's not gonna change in essence.
Okay, so if we get that part of it done for that page, then we're good.
Yeah.
And that's as far as I got for today. That leaves us to go all the way up to the end of the book next time.
So when we get all this changed and everything done, then do we get a new book?
I think that's probably what we're gonna have to do, because we've got enough changes in here that we probably should issue a complete new book to everybody.
I think we ought to just put a sign over her desk,
I'll print
not
the
to
last
change all the
pages
paragraphs
for
in
next.
here.
I won't bring the whole thing, I'll spray the last pages.
Oh, that's the office of your.
There were some questions from the last meeting that I wasn't at. It was final pay, page 44. There was a note here. Basically, this was if people don't return property. It says, is there coverage for property issued to an employee that was not returned? If there was a theft, it would have to be a theft. In other words, you couldn't just say they walked out with tape and you'd have to actually file a report. And then there was another question, which is, can the county invoice for property not returned? Yeah, you can try.
That's what we just decided to take out of here about the return of property.
Yeah, but it's in final pay, policy 1018, that exiting employees' final paycheck upon return.
I know, but to me, that's why I said this is related to a prior policy that we had or discussion last month.
Right.
And I think it behooves us to try and combine those things. If we're gonna leave them in the book, if we're taking one of them out, that's perfectly fine, but in order to make this book as effective as possible, we need to try and have subjects either combined in the same section, or have one section immediately following the other if they're related.
Well, I just wanted to answer the question that was posed last time.
Right,
Yeah, we
but
can't.
it illustrates what I'm saying, because
Maybe.
if you have one section dealing with a subject in the front of the book and way in the back of the book is another page dealing with the same subject, that's hard for anybody to correlate the two. They should be combined under one policy or immediately following one another. So I think that's something we need to keep in mind going through the book, if we're gonna rearrange policies in the book or take policies out or combine them. I think that's what I'm driving at,
But
so.
I think with the return, you took it out, right? So.
Yeah, and that's fine, but
And we added maybe invoiced.
I just wanted to be clear that to be a theft, it has to be a theft.
Yeah.
You can't just be mad at somebody. You took my red stapler.
nobody ever gets mad around here. Okay, that takes care of that book for today. Now, moving on, we come to appointments. If everything goes according to plan, which it seldom does, but according to plan, it'd be my intention to bring before the county board meeting the appointment for the new sheriff. So, I'm meeting with the designated sheriff today, and I expect that conversation will go fine. But so unless some hiccup occurs somewhere, well, that's what we're gonna do. That way, we will be prepared for him to take office on October 1st. The only question that I have, and I think Brian may be able to answer this, the existing current sheriff resigned on September 30th. That's at 12 o'clock midnight. When will the new sheriff be sworn in?
Well,
12:01.
much like what happened with Lisa and I was not sworn in until the next day. So we were, in a sense, without a county clerk from 4:30 or midnight that night until the next morning.
So are we gonna be without a sheriff for that time?
Well, no, because Clint was the designee, so Clint takes that
Okay.
and would run with it. Because that's technically, once Lisa resigned or whatever, once her time was up, the chief deputy takes over until the next person is appointed or takes care of. So you're not really without, you just have that designee. If Derek wouldn't have done the designee, then we would have been without. But since he did that, Clint technically takes over as soon as Derek is done.
So if Derek revised his resignation to say that he was resigning as of 4 PM on September 30th, then the new one could be sworn in at 4:01?
Well, he technically, I mean, I don't know that he would necessarily have to be sworn in, because he would just automatically take that role.
I agree with you. There is, however, a situation, and I don't know how significant this is, it may be a moot point, but our friends, the Edgar County Watchdogs, have been active down in Shelby County. And there's a interim sheriff down there, and they're saying that he is not entitled to the sheriff's pay.
And that is correct, as far as until
Right.
the successor is appointed or elected.
So if the new sheriff is sworn in at, let's say, 8 o'clock on October 1st, he still gets a full day's pay for that day. There's no payroll issue there. I mean, I wouldn't want to make one, but I just want to make sure that we don't have any problems in that respect as well.
When you talk to Clint, I would talk to him about that, but I don't think that would be an issue. I mean, I guess I don't understand what the issue
I guess it
would
depends on
be.
his work schedule
Right,
specifically, and when what hours he's working. If he's gonna be working from midnight to 9 AM or whatever,
right.
then it needs to be
But the
clarified.
sheriff
that
is
he
on
would be-
call 24/7, so I mean, I'm just
Right,
asking
but
the
the sheriff
question.
doesn't make overtime,
Right.
so.
I mean, I don't think it'll even be an issue, because I don't believe Clint works the overnight.
I don't know.
He works nights now,
He works some nights, yeah, but,
and he works days, it depends on
right,
their
that's what I
rotation.
meant, I don't think
But
he
I'm sure
works
he's
them
probably
very
not on the
often.
schedule, not gonna be on the schedule to
No,
work
the night before
the
he's
night
gonna
before he's gonna
take
take over as sheriff or
over.
whatever.
No, I don't,
But it's his last, Derek's last day, is that a Friday or is that I don't even know, September 30th? What day that is?
Thursday.
It's a Thursday.
Yeah.
It's a Thursday, so. it takes-
You only lose a half minute.
I mean, I don't know, I guess it's something that
120,
you can,
60,
talk to the state's attorney, judges,
Yeah.
right.
Pretty minimal
Judge
anyway.
Sable didn't want to swear me in until the next day. And technically, I mean, I would have been taking over the duties as clerk anyway, so, but I'm not sure as far as what you want to do with that.
and to the point, because he's his designee, I understand that. And that also raises another issue in that, if I'm correct, all of our elected department heads should have a designee.
Well,
For example, do you have one?
I don't have to because my chief deputy clerk automatically takes the position. So I don't, that's who by law, whoever I name as my chief deputy, that's who takes over, in my absence.
Okay, that same thing is true then with Lisa Hines?
I'm not sure what statute says for her. It all depends on what statute says. Some offices, there is no chief deputy that is mentioned in the statute. So, it's just like treasurer. I know that that the chief deputy isn't the one that automatically takes over. County board has to appoint someone to take over as treasurer. I'm not sure if there's anything written where someone can be a designee. We just might be without a treasurer for days or whatever if something happens. But it all depends on what statute says.
How can we do that?
Do what?
How can we be without a treasurer?
Well, I guess you can be for a day or so. You'd have to, but there is that possibility that, I know Champaign County was without one for a while. And the chief deputy didn't automatically, take over the job. But like I said, in the clerk's instance, it's written in statute that chief deputy automatically takes over. It's written in statute that Derek can assign a designee. So I guess it all depends on what statute says for each office. And that I don't know.
And I know we've had this conversation before, for some time now, actually. But it concerns me that the way our government here is structured, we have a number of departments where if the department head, for whatever the reason might be, is no longer able to function, we might have some difficulty with that department really functioning going forward.
That could happen, yes, definitely.
In other words, we may not have preparations made for someone to, or be qualified, whatever the case may be, to take over, but I think that's an issue that we need to be looking at.
Right, and that happened like the assessment office, just use them as an example, when the former assessor got in trouble and his chief deputy got in trouble. I mean, they both were put on administrative leave right away. So one of the girls in the office, who was in the union at the time, voluntarily stepped up to take on responsibility, but she still didn't have the designation that Bob or the assessor has to have. So the possibility is there. I don't know if you'd be able to talk every employee into stepping up to take on the responsibility if both or the head cheese and there's nothing in statute written to take over. I mean, like when Mary Ann had to take over when Angela, before you were here, Amanda, when Angela, I shouldn't be saying names, when the former finance person had a heart attack and couldn't work, and we had to have payroll done. So the other girl in the office stepped up and did that, so we would have that. Like I said,
And that
it's not
was,
always well written who does it, but
but to me, those are examples of where if we were a little better prepared, or could be, I think we might be better served as far as the way we operate. And that's kind of why I brought it up or been concerned, looking at different situations to, are people, we have some plan in place? Is the plan a good plan? Is the people are qualified? If there's things we can do to make them more qualified or what have you, I think.
right. So I guess it would be looking at how the statute is worded for each individual office to find out who the successor is.
And I mean, like in your department, for example, not saying it is or isn't, but let's just say if your chief deputy is the one to take over, is that person qualified, or is there something that needs to be done to make them more qualified?
Well, I'm trying to make sure she knows what she needs
Right.
to
No,
be doing. I mean, it's a matter of time, absolute time. It's a matter of taking on the responsibility to learn everything.
Right.
And that's right now, if something happened to me, the office would not run as effectively, but it still would run effectively.
And I'm not saying that you're not doing those things, I'm just saying,
Right.
are there things that we as a board could do to help the process be better? That's kind of where I'm coming from.
That I don't know.
I think that's part of the responsibility that the board has, is to assist in wherever possible
Sure.
in those kinds of things.
Sure.
Have a bring your board member to work day.
Well, like,
Yeah.
I'm just saying, as far as,
Essentially.
we are going to be in dire straits if something happens to Bob and
Yes.
we don't have an assessor to take over.
Yeah.
That is one that, yes, so the schooling for anyone that is interested in his office is 100% vital, that kind of thing.
We had some conversations with him when we did his performance reviews several months back, and it's an ongoing thing that we're gonna have more discussions with him about.
But the lack of assessors in the state is dire right now also, so we wouldn't be the only ones in that boat.
It's even, as far as local assessors, it's a problem in the county. And I've talked with him about things that we could do, but in fact, most of the responsibility rests with the townships in that regard. So that's another problem area on a long list of things to do that I have to hope to get done one of these days. But yeah, it's there.
Sure.
So, okay, anyway, that's the main appointment that I have at the moment for the board. Correspondence, we have a few things here. I don't think we're selling any property, but there we got a letter from some guy that wants to know that if we want to sell land, farmland, he'll help us out. And this letter here, did we look at this last month? Do you remember? I think we might have, but it applies to what tax committee's gonna be doing, so I think it'd be a good idea, maybe if Amanda, if you bring that letter to the tax committee, it might serve to let people know that not everybody agrees with that resolution, but that's the way it is. UCCI, here we have a notification that they had their membership meeting on August 23rd. I guess we don't need to look at that. I'm gonna read this at the board meeting, Barb. Okay, so we won't go into that right now. But you know we got it. I know we looked at this one in July. I don't know why we still have it. And we looked at that. We looked at this. Some of this stuff needs to get thrown away. We got a thank you card from Joe Alexander. He's the fellow that came and talked to us about the Canadian National Railroad at the last board meeting. He's thanking us for letting him come and talk to us about it. I don't know how significant that is, but that's what it is, so. Take a look at that. That's East Central Illinois talking about some of their programs. If you have any individuals in your constituency that are eligible for any of those things, let them know.
John, this letter here, should it be read before or after we talk about the resolution? read it.
I personally, I don't even know if it has to be read. I mean, you can say, I have a letter here from so-and-so, who, you can state his views, and if anybody wants to read it, they can, but I don't know that you need to take up the time at the meeting. But you can if you want. I don't know that I can tell you whether it should be before or after,
Yeah.
other than if you're gonna read it, it should be before you vote.
Yeah.
But whether it's before your discussion or after, I don't, that's up to you. So. Okay, let's move on here, because time is slipping away. We got claims from our buddy down there, Mr. Sacy. Claims he put a fuse box on his vehicle.
I did. I
What?
paid someone else to, that's what the claim is.
Oh, you were too lazy to do it yourself?
Oh, I'll do my own work on my own people sometimes.
Oh,
But now I'm a mechanic people, I ain't no mechanic.
You do enough, don't you?
and you must have gassed up a few times, because you got $156.90 for gas.
Yes, sir, that's 3 different fill-ups.
Yeah, we hope that wasn't for one.
But it's 3.
And we got cell phone. That's it. So those are the claims. We need a motion to approve the claims, send them to the county board for approval. Mr. Alt, second by Mrs. Awful. If you call the roll, please.
Alt,
Yes.
Barr,
Yes.
Awful,
Yes.
Sure.
Yes. Old business. Is there any old business to come before the committee this morning? How about new business? I have some new business. We have a serious problem with our animal control program right now. And we're gonna have to make some decisions going forward as to how we wanna handle this. It's not on the agenda today. I don't know if it'll be on the agenda anywhere in the near future, but we're gonna have to make some decisions of how we wanna handle this program. We cannot let it go unattended. At the same time, hiring somebody to take place of the departed or resigned Dr. Youssef is not an easy task. There's a shortage of vets. We just don't have anybody that's willing to do it or wants to do it. So we have to try and figure out what we're gonna do. And we have several options, and I was hoping that Mr. Behrens would be here today so we could talk about it, but he's got some other things he's gotta get done today and couldn't be here. So, we may have some conversations at the management committee meeting next week. I'll see where that goes, but one of the thoughts or ideas that we have is maybe having the county establish a department or whatever you want to call it, where we would be able to house animals, dogs and cats primarily, that are picked up for their period of time before they might be sent on to a shelter for adoption. Or if we wanted to actually have a shelter here where we would not only pick up the dogs, something like Vermilion County has, where they have in their building, they have one section for dogs that are picked up and cats, and then they have another, after they're there for their 10 days or whatever it is, then nobody claims them or whatever, they transfer them over to their adoption section and adopt them out. So that's something that I think we need to take under consideration and think about. So I'm bringing it to everybody's attention so you can start thinking about how we want to proceed and what ideas you have as to how we can revise or reform animal control and have something that's modern, up-to-date, effective, and all the other adjectives that give us an animal control operation that meets the needs of the county. Right now, we have 2 wardens that are limping along, handling cases as they come up. Where there's a bite or anything of that nature, we have arrangements with Kankakee County Animal Control and Ford County Animal Control to help in processing those cases properly or effectively. But we do not have a place, if there was a stray dog running out here right now and they came over and picked it up, We don't have any place to keep it. I've looked around and looked around, I've talked to I don't know how many people to try and find a small building that has water and electricity in it that we could rent and use temporarily for that purpose, and I've come up with a blank. Nobody seems to want to make anything available. So consequently, we're kind of up against it, and we can't continue this way. We're gonna have to get something in place here pretty quick. It is possible that we could do something. For example, one idea was to make an addition over here to the shed that Chris Drake occupies. We could add on to that shed going north and make a place in there to house animals, and possibly even if we wanted to have a shelter that could be located there. But,
What about the facilities? Is he selling that?
yes. And he's offered it to us, and my so far refusal or reluctance to consider purchasing it is the fact that what will you do with it after it no longer serves its purpose? Nobody wants to buy that building. It's on the floodplain. It's in decent shape from what I can say, but it's not modern. It's an older building. Do you know how old that building is, Brian? It's been there quite a few years. I mean, it was there long before Yusuf came. At least in the 1990s, but I think it's even longer than that. Do you know any reason?
No, I'm not sure.
Dave would have been the one that.
Roger, you've been around. Do you know when that building was put up? It's a cement block building, so I mean, it's but it's right in the middle of the floodplain.
I know.
They've never had water come into it, as far as I know, but
We,
when you have a flood, your access to the building is cut off. You can't get into that part of town.
we took, our first cat out there. That would have to have been in the. Well, it'd be sometime in the late 70s. And,
He's got the property listed right now with Macaulay Real Estate. The listing price is $199,000. He's offered it to me for the county for $120,000. That's a big difference. But even at $120,000, I just don't think that's a good investment for the county to make.
as far as the vet coming in, why, like I say, there is a shortage of vets, and I was talking to an individual that's a vet up at Bradley Animal Clinic, and they said not many vets coming to Illinois because they had interviewed one for, they have quite a few vets on their staff, and person seemed interested, but then they went to Indiana. Plus his equipment out there is not modern. X-rays are still the old film type, and everything now is digital, and so.
Well, you're right. In my view, it's an opportunity if somebody wanted to start their own vet business, that they could go out there for a few years and build up their clientele base and so forth. And then they might want to construct a new facility somewhere on the east side of town here.
Yeah.
But but the question becomes, well, then what about the building out there?
Yeah, that's it.
Russell Bills is the only one that's bought any property or any buildings out there that I know of, and he bought that school building out there, and he's got motorcycles stored in it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not making very good use of a good building. For him it is, but I mean, it's just, if somebody thinks the county should buy that building out there and the board wants to do that, that's fine. I just don't think it's a good idea. I think we can find a better solution, but we need to find a solution pretty quick. So that's why I'm bringing it up under new business today. Between now and then, we'll see where we're gonna go.
I have a question. What if there's a dog that seems to be rabid? What are they doing?
Well, that's where these vets in Ford County or Kankakee County will
They'll
come
take
into
it
play.
in.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've already, and they just invoice us. They've already helped us out with quite a few bite cases and one bat.
Yeah, but
That
they're not
tested
gonna-
negative, by the way.
They're not gonna wanna do that for very long, I would think, so.
No,
we do
I
need-
think that, I don't, nobody set a time limit on it, but I agree.
Animal control.
But the issue is, there's always a lot of stray dogs and cats. If you pick up a stray dog and he's got a rabies tag on, and you can find the owner today, take it back to him, that's one thing. But if you can't find him, then, you know, we hold the dog sometimes for 10 days, 2 weeks. And maybe the owner comes in if they may have been out of town or whatever, how, you know, there's different circumstances. The owner finally comes and claims the animal, we might have kept it for a week. He has to pay for room and board and all that stuff during
$15
that
a
time,
day.
but the point is, we don't have any facility or place to do that right.
Right now, she did have one, the warden had one neglect case where the animals needed to be removed immediately. It was 3 pit bull puppies, 2 of them were male, and she did get those placed with rescues that have been used already. The problem is she had a 3rd one that one of the village police officers was interested in taking the female because no other rescue wanted it. It costs more money to spay females than it does to neuter the males. That's why females are harder to place. So Linda was holding it, and the officer changed his mind, and she currently is fostering that pup until we can get it in somewhere. I did ask one of the local vets if they would be interested in spaying that dog, so it'd be easier to place in a rescue, because we have animal control population funds we could use for that. And I haven't gotten a response yet.
So anyway, we're gonna have to make some decisions on how we're gonna proceed with all that, so.
What were you saying about that building? Which building were you talking about?
You mean adding on?
Well, you just said something about.
One option would be that we can add on to the shed over here that Chris Strait uses for, and they store vehicles. His vehicle is stored in there. And the sheriff puts the vehicles in there sometimes. There's 2 trucks. Chris has a pickup truck that he uses every day, and then he has the one with the snowplow on it. So that shed is pretty well filled up. The health department has PPE stored in there. There's
Excuse me.
salt for the, what
The PPE stored in there?
is it? I was told it is.
And there is PPE in there, that might be EMA or Quid County PPE that's been acquired during the pandemic.
But, I mean, it's just,
There's PPE stored in there, all the same.
I'm just saying that there's no space available in that building, but we can add on to the building. We can go north. There's water out there, there's electricity out there. The heat and air conditioning isn't an issue. I mean, that's easy to put in there. The thing is, if we were to add on to the building, we could construct, you know, a building that the design of which and the function is up to date with all the things that we consider today. And Jill and I have both looked on the internet, and there's companies that's what they do. And you'd be amazed at how nice and modern their facilities look compared with what's out there.
They're more up to date with
Animal hospital.
code, as far as.
And that's
safety
part of the
and-
reason why, you know, considering that maybe we should think about building something that's not in a floodplain, something that's modern and up to date.
So
That's
what
one
do we,
option.
what do we have to do to start that?
Well, we have
That
to make,
sounds good to
we
me.
have to make a decision to do it, and then we probably have to hire somebody to prepare plans and drawings and so forth, and we have to go out for bids to have a contractor come and construct it, and and all that, everything that goes with all that, so.
So what does this committee need to do with that idea?
Well, I'm bringing this up so that you're aware of the situation of what's going on. So a lot of it, like if we decide to do this, the management committee probably should be the one that would process the whole business of, getting the building put together and so forth.
So maybe put that on the agenda to talk about that? I mean, we need to get it going.
That's what I said, we'll probably have it at, I was hoping that he'd be here today. I'll speak to him after tonight. He's awful busy right now, and his mind is full of other things, so.
Okay.
It's better to talk to somebody when their mind is a little better focused and they can think about what you're talking to them about, so.
I like that idea.
So, I mean, this, unless somebody has some other ideas, but, like what Roger said, talking to Yvette and Bradley, if you know somebody in Kokomo, Indiana, or San Francisco, California, wherever that's a vet that might like to, or knows a vet that wants to start his own business, there's an opportunity here. And it may not be the best opportunity in the world, but it's an opportunity for somebody to get started running their business. There's no question in my mind that Watseka needs a vet. There's enough pets and so forth around here that it should be a profitable business for somebody. And if that vet would come into animal control, that's fine. In the meantime, the Animal Control Act requires that we have an administrator. The administrator does not have to be a vet, and I've indicated that I'm temporarily going to appoint Joe as that administrator, and we'll get into more detail about how that's going to work.
She'd be a good one.
Because
Way to go, girl.
we need somebody to do that. She already knows, I've already told her about it, so, and she's really doing it already anyway, so.
Knows her stuff.
You the gal.
There'll be more discussion about that at the Finance Committee next Thursday, so. Because we need to formalize that and get it done. So, anyway, that's what I wanted to talk about under new business. Anybody else have any new business? If not, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do we have a second? Mr. Bard. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Now take a drink of water, you talked a lot.